Elvis Presley bought a house in Memphis in 1957. It was a big white column mansion on 13.8 acres. He named it Graceland. He lived there until he died in 1977. Today, it's the second most visited home in America after the White House. Over 600,000 people walk through its rooms every year. They see the gold records. They see the jumpsuits. They see the jungle room. They see a life frozen in time. A life that ended too soon. But what if it never really ended? What if a part of that life is still there? For decades, the people who know Graceland best, the staff who walk its halls day and night, have told stories. They are not stories for the official tour. They are quiet stories shared in hushed tones after the crowds have gone home. Stories of strange sounds, fleeting sights, and feelings that cannot be explained. They are stories of a house that seems to remember. A house that seems to be alive. Is it just an old house making old house noises? Or is the king of rock and roll still home? Number 16 is that his voice on the air. It's one thing to see a shadow or feel a cold spot. It's something else entirely to hear a voice when no one is there. And at Graceland, the most commonly reported sound is the one that made the place famous in the first place. The voice of Elvis Presley. This isn't about hearing his records playing mysteriously. The reports are more personal, more intimate than that. Staff members, particularly security guards on the late-night shift, have claimed to hear snippets of conversation. Sometimes it's a low murmur, impossible to make out, coming from the direction of the living room. Other times, it's more distinct, a single word, a laugh. One of the most persistent stories involves the sound of someone humming. A security guard, new to the job, was making his rounds late one night. The house was dark and silent. As he passed the music room, he heard a man humming a gospel tune. He knew the melody. It was How Great Thou Art, one of Elvis's favorites. He froze, drew his flashlight, and carefully pushed the door open. The room was empty. The piano was closed. The silence rushed back in. He checked every corner, but there was no one there. He never heard it again, but the experience stayed with him. He said it didn't feel scary. It felt peaceful. This phenomenon is known in paranormal research as a disembodied voice. It's different from what investigators call an electronic voice phenomenon, or EVP, which is a voice captured on a recording device but not heard at the time. These are audible voices heard in real time. Skeptics have logical explanations. Auditory pareidolia is a big one. It's the brain's tendency to find patterns, like voices or music, in random noise. An old house creaks, the wind howls, an HVAC system hums. The brain, especially in a place so heavily associated with one person's voice, might connect the dots and create a sound that isn't really there. The guard was new, perhaps nervous. The power of suggestion is strong, but the reports are often very specific. Some staff have reported hearing a clear thank you very much, whispered in the trophy room, as if Elvis is still acknowledging his adoring fans. Others have claimed to hear a frustrated sigh coming from upstairs near his private office. This is where the idea of a residual haunting comes into play. The stone tape theory, proposed by British archaeologist T.C. Lethbridge in the 1960s, suggests that strong emotional events can be recorded onto the physical environment. A building's stone, wood, and water molecules could hold this energy. Then, under certain conditions, the recording plays back. And so, it's not Elvis's ghost in the trophy room, it's just an echo of him, a moment of his energy replaying itself. It would explain why the sounds are often repetitive and don't interact with the living. But what about the reports of laughter that seems to happen in response to a joke a staff member just told? Or a hum that starts up when a favorite song of his is mentioned? That sounds less like a recording and more like an intelligent presence, a conscious entity. Elvis was known for his sense of humor and his love of people. It's comforting for some to think he's still around, sharing a laugh. The house was his sanctuary, the one place he could truly be himself. Maybe he never wanted to leave, so we're left with a sound that defined a generation. A voice that changed the world. Is it just the wind playing tricks on the ears of tired employees? Is it an energetic echo of a life lived at full volume? Or is Elvis still humming his favorite tunes in the quiet of his own home? What if a human voice is more than just sound waves, but a unique energy signature that can persist after the body is gone? If a building can record sound, can it also record thoughts and feelings? And if you heard a voice from an empty room, would you be more afraid of the ghost, or of what it means about the rules of reality? Number 15. Who is the little girl in blue? Not all the spirits at Graceland are said to be the king. One of the most enduring and unsettling stories is that of a little girl. She is seen fleetingly, often out of the corner of the eye. Staff and even some visitors have described seeing a small child, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with long brown hair wearing a simple blue dress. She's usually seen darting down a hallway or peeking from behind a curtain. By the time you turn to get a good look, she's gone. The first question everyone asks is, who is she? There's no record of a young girl dying at Graceland during Elvis's time there. He had his daughter, Lisa Marie, but she grew up and is certainly not the spirit in question. This has led researchers to look into the history of the property itself before it was Graceland. The land was originally part of a 500-acre farm owned by the S.C. Tooth family. They named it Graceland after a relative, Grace Tooth. The mansion itself was built in 1939 by Grace's niece, Ruth Moore, and her husband. Did a tragedy befall a child on that farm 100 years ago? Records from that far back are often incomplete. A forgotten family accident, a lost child, could easily have been lost to history. The girl's presence is often associated with a feeling of playful energy, not sadness. One custodian was cleaning the living room late at night and saw what he thought was a child's shadow run behind the large sofa. Thinking a tourist child had somehow been left behind, he went to look. There was nothing. Just dust bunnies and the heavy silence of the empty mansion. Another time, a tour guide was locking up and heard a child's giggle coming from the top of the main staircase, the one that leads to the private, off-limits second floor. Again, a search revealed nothing. Paranormal investigators have theories about child spirits. Some believe that, because they died before they had a chance to fully live, their spirits are filled with a kind of restless energy. They are often not stuck in the same way an adult spirit might be, who is tied to a place by trauma or unfinished business. Instead, they are said to be more like echoes of innocence, replaying moments of happiness or simple curiosity. The little girl in blue isn't wailing or trying to communicate a warning. She's playing. Well, she's peeking, she's giggling. Skeptics point to the power of suggestion and folklore. The ghostly child is a classic trope in horror and ghost stories. Once a story like this starts, it can easily spread. A fleeting shadow caused by the headlights of a passing car, a high-pitched sound from the plumbing, can be interpreted through the lens of the existing legend. Someone hears the story of the girl in blue, and the next time they see a flicker of movement, their brain fills in the blanks. It's a compelling narrative. The innocent child spirit in the home of the king of rock and roll. It's almost cinematic, but the consistency of the description is what gives people pause. It's always a girl. She always has brown hair. She's always in a blue dress. If it were just random misinterpretations, you'd expect more variety in the stories. One person sees a boy, another sees a toddler, another sees a girl in red, but the image remains remarkably stable across different witnesses over many years. This suggests that people are either seeing the same thing, or the story is just being repeated very accurately. Elvis loved children. He famously supported St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis. Perhaps this child spirit, if she exists, was drawn to the house not because of a connection to the land, but because of the man who lived there. A kind, gentle soul who she felt safe with. Maybe she isn't a ghost of Graceland's past, but a visitor, just like everyone else. So who is this mysterious child? Is she a forgotten soul from the farm's long history? Is she a figment of a collective imagination, a piece of modern folklore? Or is she a gentle spirit drawn to a place that was once filled with so much life and love, a place she now shares with its most famous resident? If a spirit is not tied to its own death, can it choose where to reside? What draws a ghost to one house and not another? And if a child's spirit can linger for over a century, does that mean time works differently on the other side? Number 14 is the music room still playing. The front room on the right side of the main hall at Graceland is the music room. It's dominated by a grand piano. Not just any piano, it's a 1955 Story & Clark piano, originally white, that Elvis had placed in the house. He loved this room. It was a place of joy, creativity, and solace. He would spend hours here playing gospel hymns, blues standards, and rock and roll hits. Friends and family would gather, and the room would be filled with song. Today, the piano sits silently behind a velvet rope. Or does it? One of the most frequent and compelling paranormal claims from Graceland staff involves this very room. The story is almost always the same. A guard or a custodian is alone in the house at night. Suddenly, the faint sound of piano keys begins to drift from the music room. It's not a complex song, usually just a few simple chords, a familiar melody that hangs in the air for a moment before fading away. When they go to investigate, the room is of course empty. The lid on the piano keys is closed and locked. In a 1982 interview, shortly after Graceland opened to the public, an early employee told a local Memphis paper that hearing the piano was just part of the job. He said it happened so often that the night staff stopped being scared of it and just accepted it. "It's just Elvis," he said, letting us know he's still around. The music is most often described as gospel. This makes sense. In his later years, gospel music was Elvis's greatest comfort. It was the music he turned to when he was feeling lost or lonely. It connected him to his mother Gladys and his childhood faith. The scientific explanation is straightforward. An old, large house like Graceland is full of ambient noises. The wood floors and walls contract and expand with changes in temperature and humidity, causing creaks and groans that can sound surprisingly melodic. Wind moving through a window frame or a draft in a chimney can create flute-like tones. The human brain, brilliant at pattern recognition, can easily assemble these random noises into something that sounds like a faint piano melody, especially in a room where a piano sits. But this doesn't fully account for the specificity of the reports. People don't just hear a noise. They hear what sounds like Amazing Grace or Peace in the Valley. This pushes us back toward the stone tape theory. Imagine the sheer amount of emotional energy poured into that room over 2 decades. The joy of a new hit record, the sorrow of a personal loss, the spiritual release of playing gospel music late into the night. Could the piano, the walls, the very air of that room have absorbed that energy? The sounds wouldn't be a conscious ghost playing the piano, but a psychic replay of a moment from the past. A residual haunting. The environment itself is the recording medium. This theory gained some traction in paranormal circles following the work of investigators like William G. Roll in the 1970s, who studied recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis (RSPK). While RSPK deals with moving objects, the underlying idea is similar, that human consciousness can somehow imprint itself upon and influence the physical world. Perhaps music, being a direct expression of emotion, creates an even stronger imprint than a simple action. What's also interesting is that the music is rarely, if ever, described as loud or disruptive. It's always faint, gentle, and in the background. It's as if it's a memory that's slowly fading over time. If it is Elvis, it's not a performance, it's a private moment, a man playing for himself. For the staff who experience it, it's often a comforting sound. A reminder that the house was once a home filled with the passions of the man who loved it. Is the phantom piano of Graceland just the product of an old house settling and an active imagination? Is it a literal recording, an echo of emotional energy soaked into the fabric of the room? Or is it possible that a spirit so deeply connected to his music would find a way to keep playing long after the show was over? If a place can hold a memory of a sound, can it also hold a memory of a feeling? Can you walk into a room and feel the sadness or joy that was experienced there 50 years ago? And if music is the bridge between the spiritual and the physical, is it any surprise that it's the last thing to fade away? Number 13. Why does Vernon's office feel so tense? And tucked away behind the main staircase at Graceland is a small, wood-paneled room. This was Vernon Presley's office. Elvis's father, Vernon, was the cautious, frugal anchor to his son's whirlwind of fame and fortune. From this small room, he managed the ever-growing and often chaotic financial empire of Elvis Presley Enterprises. He paid the bills, managed the staff, and tried his best to keep a handle on his son's legendary generosity and impulse spending. It was a place of serious business, of stress, and of constant worry, and according to some Graceland staff, that feeling has never left. Unlike other areas of the mansion where phenomena are described as playful or peaceful, the reports from Vernon's office are different. Employees have reported a heavy, oppressive atmosphere in the room. Some feel a sudden wave of anxiety upon entering. Others get the distinct impression that they are being watched, scrutinized even. It's not a malevolent feeling, they say, but it's an uncomfortable one. A feeling of being judged, as if someone is looking over your shoulder, checking your work. Physical phenomena are reported here too. Custodians have claimed that objects on the desk, a pen, a stack of papers will be slightly moved from where they were left the night before. One longtime security guard swore he heard the distinct sound of an old adding machine clacking away inside the locked office. He checked his logs. No one had a key, and no one had been inside. The sound stopped as soon as he approached the door. The most common sensory experience is the smell of cigar smoke. Vernon was a cigar smoker. Staff will be walking down the hallway and get a sudden, strong whiff of a cigar, only for it to vanish moments later. This is a classic example of a phantom smell, a phenomenon known as phantasmia. And medically, it can be caused by sinus issues or neurological conditions. In paranormal terms, it's often associated with a specific spirit, a kind of calling card. The smell isn't just smoke. It's often described as the sweet, distinct smell of the specific brand of cheap cigars Vernon favored. If we consider the theory of an intelligent haunting, it makes a certain kind of sense. Vernon Presley's entire identity at Graceland was one of a guardian, a protector of the family's assets. His work was his life, and his office was his domain. He died in 1979, just 2 years after Elvis. He spent those 2 years desperately trying to settle his son's complicated estate. It's plausible that his spirit would remain attached to the place of his greatest responsibility. His unfinished business would be the perpetual protection of his son's legacy and home. Psychologically, this could also be a case of environmental conditioning. The room looks serious. It's dark, wood-paneled, and filled with business artifacts. A person walking into that room is already primed to feel a certain way. An employee, knowing this was the financial heart of the operation, might subconsciously project feelings of stress or scrutiny onto the space. They know Vernon was a worrier, so they feel the worry in the room. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But that doesn't explain a moved pen, or the sound of an adding machine. T.C. Lethbridge's stone tape theory could apply here as well. Vernon spent countless hours in that room, under immense stress, performing the same repetitive tasks day after day. Calculating figures, signing checks, smoking cigars, those intense, repeated actions could have left a strong residual impression on the room, replaying themselves like a psychic tape loop for those sensitive enough to perceive it. The feeling of being watched could just be an echo of the intense concentration Vernon himself felt in that chair. The phenomena in Vernon's office stand in stark contrast to the rest of the house. While Elvis's spirit is associated with music and laughter, Vernon's is tied to duty, worry, and the scent of stale cigar smoke. It's a different kind of haunting for a different kind of man. Could a person's core personality traits like protectiveness or anxiety become so ingrained in a location that they persist long after death? Like, does a sense of responsibility create a stronger spiritual anchor than fame or joy? And if you felt a ghostly presence watching you work, would it make you work harder? Or number 12, do the horses sense a master's return? Graceland is more than just a house. It's an estate, with grounds, outbuildings, and stables. Elvis loved horses. He kept several at Graceland, and riding them around the property was one of his favorite ways to escape the pressures of fame. The stables are still there, and horses still live on the grounds of Graceland today. And according to the stable hands and groundskeepers, the animals sometimes act as if the original master is still visiting them. The stories often involve a particular time of day dusk. As the sun sets and the last of the staff are leaving, the horses will sometimes become agitated for no apparent reason. They will all turn their heads in the same direction towards the back of the mansion, their ears perked up as if listening to someone approaching. They might snort or stomp a hoof, not in fear, but in anticipation. One groundskeeper who worked there for over a decade described it as the way the horses would act when Elvis himself used to walk down from the house to see them. They recognized his walk, his scent, his presence. The groundskeeper said, "It's like they still do." Animals are widely believed to be more sensitive to paranormal phenomena than humans. Their senses are different, more acute. A dog can hear frequencies far beyond the range of a human ear. A cat can see in lighting conditions that would leave us blind. This idea is ancient, appearing in folklore from around the world. In paranormal research, it's a common observation. Investigators will often bring animals to a supposedly haunted location, believing they will react to things the humans cannot perceive. In his book, The Entity, Frank DeFelitta's story was based on the real-life case of Doris Bither, whose haunting was often first noticed by the frantic barking of her dog. Skeptics argue that there are countless rational explanations for a horse's behavior. A distant sound that a human can't hear, a car backfiring a mile away, A high-frequency sound from a nearby building could easily startle them. The scent of a wild animal like a coyote or a fox could put them on alert. It could simply be a learned behavior, a routine tied to the time of day when they expect to be fed or brought inside. There's no need to invoke the supernatural. However, the staff who work with these animals every day are adamant that this behavior is different. It's not the spooked reaction they see when a loud noise occurs. It's a focused, attentive reaction. They are not looking around wildly. They are looking at a specific spot, a path leading from the house, where nothing and no one is visible. This specificity is what makes the claims intriguing. There is also the story of Elvis's favorite horse, a golden palomino named Rising Sun. After Elvis died, Rising Sun reportedly became listless and depressed. He would often stand in the field for hours, staring up at the window of Elvis's bedroom. He died a few years later. While attributing human emotions like grief to an animal is a form of anthropomorphism, the story adds to the legend of the deep bond between Elvis and his animals. Could the horses be reacting to something real but imperceptible to us? Perhaps they are hearing a sound on a frequency we can't register, the residual echo of Elvis's footsteps. Or maybe they are sensing a change in the electromagnetic field, something that paranormal theories suggest is associated with spiritual energy. Or perhaps it's simpler. Perhaps they just sense the presence of a familiar, friendly energy that they associate with kindness, sugar cubes, and a gentle hand. Do animals have a sixth sense that allows them to perceive things beyond our understanding? Could the bond between a person and an animal transcend death? And if you wanted to prove the existence of ghosts, would your best witness be a man or a horse? Number 11, what does the meditation garden remember? Behind the mansion, past the swimming pool, there's a quiet, peaceful corner of the Graceland estate. It's called the Meditation Garden. Elvis had it built in the mid-1960s as a place for quiet reflection. It's a calm, beautiful spot with a circular fountain, stone benches, and a curved wall of brick and stained glass. Today, it is something more. It is the final resting place of Elvis, his parents Vernon and Gladys, and his grandmother Minnie Mae. It is the most sacred spot on the property, and for many, it is the most active. The phenomena reported here are not like the playful or personal events inside the house. They are heavier, more profound. Staff and visitors alike have reported an overwhelming feeling of sadness when standing near Gladys Presley's grave. Elvis was famously devoted to his mother. Her death in 1958, when he was just 23 and at the height of his initial fame, devastated him. He never fully recovered. People who claim to be sensitive to psychic energy say the ground around her grave is saturated with the raw, powerful grief of a loving son. It's not Gladys's ghost they feel, they say. It's the emotional echo of Elvis's sorrow. This aligns with the concept of place memory, a close cousin to the stone tape theory. The idea is that strong emotions can be absorbed by the environment and then felt by others later on. Dr. Michael Persinger, a neuroscientist, conducted experiments in the 1980s suggesting that changes in geomagnetic fields could stimulate the temporal lobes of the brain, causing people to have experiences they interpret as spiritual or paranormal. Perhaps the intense emotional energy of Elvis's grief created a kind of geomagnetic anomaly in that specific spot, which sensitive people can still perceive today. But there are other reports that are harder to explain. A shadowy figure is sometimes seen standing near Elvis's grave, especially in the early morning or late evening when the light is low. It's described as a tall, broad-shouldered man, simply standing still, as if paying his respects. When approached or looked at directly, it vanishes. Skeptics would call this a classic trick of the light, a shadow cast by a tree or a statue that the mind shapes into a human form. Pareidolia, the brain's tendency to see patterns, is especially strong in low light conditions. There are also auditory phenomena. Visitors have claimed to hear quiet weeping when no one else is around. And in one of the more unusual claims, a former security guard reported hearing the sound of dirt being shoveled late one night. He followed the sound to the meditation garden, thinking it must be a groundskeeper working late. The sound was clear, a rhythmic scrape and thud. But when he arrived, the garden was empty and still. The sound stopped instantly. The reburial of Elvis and his mother is a key part of this story. Initially, Elvis was buried next to his mother at Forest Hill Cemetery in Memphis. But after a bizarre and unsuccessful attempt to steal his body in late August 1977, Vernon Presley had both Elvis and Gladys moved to the safety of the Meditation Garden on October 2nd, 1977. The act of burial is a powerful emotional event. Could the sound the guard heard be a residual echo of that traumatic, stressful night? A moment of intense activity replaying itself over and over, the meditation garden is the emotional heart of Graceland. It was a place of peace in Elvis's life and became a place of mourning after his death. The emotions tied to this small patch of land are arguably the most intense on the entire property: love, grief, peace, and the trauma of loss. It's a potent combination. Can profound grief leave a permanent stain on a physical location? Is the shadowy figure a separate entity, a spiritual guardian, or is it Elvis himself watching over his family? And if a place can make you feel the sorrow of someone who died decades ago, are you just being emotional, or are you experiencing a true echo of the past? Number 10, why do the lights flicker on command? In any old house, lights flicker. Bulbs get old, wiring ages, and the power grid fluctuates. It's normal. But at Graceland, some staff members believe the flickering lights are not random. They believe they are a form of communication. This phenomenon is not tied to one specific room, but seems to happen throughout the mansion. The stories are compelling because they often involve a direct call and response element. A tour guide might be telling a story about Elvis in the living room, and at the exact moment she mentions his name, a lamp on a side table will flicker on and off. A maintenance worker, frustrated with a difficult repair in the basement, might say out loud, "Come on, Elvis, give me a hand here," and a bare bulb overhead will suddenly brighten and then dim. These aren't power surges that affect the whole house. It's usually a single light, a specific lamp, that seems to react to a word, a name, or a direct request. This is a classic trope in paranormal investigation, often referred to as spirit communication through electronics. Or investigators from early pioneers like Harry Price, who investigated Borley Rectory in the 1930s, to modern TV ghost hunters, have documented cases of spirits seemingly manipulating electrical devices. The theory is that a spirit, being a form of energy, can more easily influence the flow of another form of energy, like electricity. It takes less effort for a ghost to cause a brief surge or dip in power to a light bulb than it does to move a solid object across a room. The scientific perspective offers a range of mundane explanations. Faulty wiring is the most obvious. In a house built in 1939 and heavily modified in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's a miracle the lights don't flicker more often. Loose connections, old switches, and degrading insulation can all cause intermittent behavior. Another explanation is confirmation bias. The lights in an old house flicker all the time, but you don't notice it or remember it unless it happens at a moment that seems significant. A light flickers while you're washing the floor, you ignore it. A light flickers the second you say Elvis, you remember it forever. You are connecting two unrelated events because it creates a better story. However, the staff who experience this regularly argue that it's too precise to be a coincidence. They see it as a simple, playful way for the resident spirit to make his presence known. It's not frightening, it's interactive. One of the most famous stories involves the large, elaborate chandelier in the dining room. It's said that during the Christmas season, when the house is decorated just as Elvis liked it, the chandelier will sometimes blink and shimmer, almost as if in approval. This brings up the idea of an intelligent haunting. Unlike a residual haunting, which is just a replay of past events, an intelligent haunting involves a conscious entity that is aware of the present and can interact with it. A residual echo of energy wouldn't flicker a light on cue. A conscious spirit might. If this is Elvis, it fits his personality. He was a showman, but also a prankster. He loved getting a reaction out of people. Flickering a light to startle or amuse a tour guide seems exactly like something he would do. This form of supposed communication is not just limited to Graceland, it's a cornerstone of modern ghost hunting. Devices like the Ovilus or Ghost Box are designed on the principle that spirits can manipulate energy to form words or phrases. While the scientific validity of these devices is highly debatable, the underlying idea is the same one being reported by the Graceland staff. Spirits can use our technology to say hello. Are the flickering lights of Graceland just the predictable quirks of an aging electrical system? Is it a classic case of confirmation bias, where people find meaning in random events? Or is it a simple, low-energy way for the king to let everyone know he's still in the building and he's still paying attention? If a spirit can manipulate electricity, what else can it influence? Radio waves or computer data? And if you could ask a ghost a yes or no question and have it answer by flickering a light, what would be the first thing you'd ask? Number 9. What is the unseen force on the stairs? The main staircase at Graceland is an iconic feature of the house. It's a grand, curving structure that leads from the foyer up to the second floor. This second floor is the most private and mysterious part of the mansion. It contains Elvis's bedroom, his office, Lisa Marie's room, and the bathroom where he died. It has been strictly off limits to the public and even to most staff since Graceland opened its doors in 1982. The family's wish was to preserve it as a private sanctuary, but the staircase that leads to it seems to have a life of its own. Staff members have reported a wide range of strange phenomena on these stairs. The most common report is that of cold spots. A person will be walking up or down the stairs and pass through a pocket of air that is intensely, unnaturally cold. It's not a draft from a window or a vent, it's a localized, often mobile patch of cold. In paranormal theory, cold spots are thought to be caused by a spirit drawing energy from the environment in order to manifest. The process is endothermic, pulling heat from the surrounding air and causing the temperature to drop suddenly. Famous cases like the Enfield poltergeist investigation in England in the late 1970s heavily featured reports of sudden, inexplicable temperature drops. But the experiences on the staircase go beyond cold spots. Some employees have reported feeling a gentle push or a light touch on their back as they ascend the stairs, as if being hurried along. Others, descending the stairs, have felt an unseen presence blocking their way, a sudden feeling of pressure that makes them stop. There's a persistent feeling of being watched when on the staircase, as if from the landing above. One of the most specific stories involves a female staff member who was locking up for the night. As she started up the stairs to check a door on the landing, she felt a distinct tug on the back of her shirt, as if a child were trying to get her attention. She turned around, expecting to see someone, but the foyer was empty. The feeling was so real that she checked her shirt for a snag, but found nothing. Skeptics would suggest that these feelings are created by the architecture and atmosphere of the space. A grand, curving staircase in a dimly lit, silent house can be an intimidating place. The off-limits nature of the second floor adds a layer of mystery and psychological tension. The human brain is highly susceptible to suggestion. If you know you're not supposed to go up there, your mind can create a sensation of being blocked or pushed back. This is related to the sense presence effect, often reported by mountain climbers and solo adventurers in extreme conditions. Dr. Olaf Blanke's neurological research has shown that stimulating certain parts of the brain can create the feeling of a shadow person or unseen presence standing near the subject. It's a trick of the brain, not a ghost. But what if the staircase is a kind of boundary, a dividing line between the public part of the house and the intensely private, protected space upstairs? Perhaps the energy there is protective. It's not malevolent. The push is gentle. The tug is playful. It's more of a reminder, this far and no further. It could be the spirit of Elvis himself, jealously guarding the one part of his home that is still truly his. In life, his privacy was constantly invaded. In death, maybe he's finally able to enforce some boundaries. The staircase is a transitional space, a place between two floors, between the public and the private. In folklore and mythology, such liminal spaces, doorways, bridges, crossroads are often considered to be places where the veil between worlds is thin. The Graceland staircase is the ultimate liminal space in the house. Is the strange energy on the staircase simply a product of its design and the mystique of the forbidden second floor? Are the cold spots and touches just tricks of the mind in a suggestible environment? Or is there a protective, present standing guard, ensuring that the final sanctuary of the king remains undisturbed? Why do so many paranormal reports come from staircases? Does the act of moving between levels in a building have some kind of psychic significance? And if you were a ghost, what part of your home would you fight the hardest to keep for yourself? Number 8, why are objects moved in the jungle room? The den at Graceland is better known as the jungle room. It's perhaps the most famous and unusual room in the house. In 1974, Elvis decided to redecorate it. Inspired by a favorite chair, he filled the room with green shag carpet on the floor, and the ceiling, dark carved wooden furniture, and a built-in stone waterfall. It's kitschy, over the top, and pure Elvis. It was his favorite place to relax with his friends, the Memphis Mafia. It was also a creative space. In February and October of 1976, RCA brought in mobile recording equipment, and the jungle room was temporarily turned into a studio. It's where Elvis recorded most of his final album, Moody Blue. The room is soaked in the energy of his last creative bursts. and it seems that energy is still active. The jungle room is a hotspot for reports of moved objects. This type of phenomenon is known as a displaced object phenomenon DOP, or the poltergeist effect. The stories from staff are usually small and subtle. A tiki idol on a shelf will be turned to face a different direction. A cushion on the sofa will have an indentation as if someone just sat on it, even though the room has been empty for hours. A single billiard ball on the pool table in the adjacent room will roll a few inches on its own. One of the most repeated tales involves the large, ornate wooden chairs. A custodian will clean the room, making sure every chair is perfectly aligned. When they return an hour later, one chair will be pulled slightly away from the wall, as if someone had moved it to sit down. There's no logical explanation. The floor is carpeted and level. There are no vibrations from traffic outside that could cause such a specific movement. Skeptics have a variety of explanations. Simple human error is the most likely. The custodian thinks they placed the chair perfectly, but they were off by a few inches and didn't notice. Or another staff member entered the room without them knowing. Old houses also settle, and vibrations from heating systems, plumbing, or even minor seismic activity can cause small movements that seem mysterious. The power of suggestion is also at play. The jungle room is visually chaotic. It's easy for the eye to be tricked and to think an object has moved when it's just being seen from a new angle. But paranormal researchers would classify these events as a classic poltergeist-style haunting. The word poltergeist is German for noisy ghost, but the phenomena are usually more physical than auditory. They are often associated with a specific person, an agent, or a specific location where intense emotion was experienced. The jungle room fits this perfectly. It was a place of fun and relaxation, but also of intense creative pressure during those final recording sessions. And Elvis was in poor health, and his voice was not always at its peak. The sessions were reportedly fraught with frustration and moments of pure genius. That emotional cocktail could have charged the room with a kind of psychokinetic energy. The work of William G. Roll, who investigated thousands of poltergeist cases, found that the object movements were often symbolic or connected to the personality of the presumed entity. In the jungle room, the movements are not violent or scary. A chair is moved. A cushion is indented. It's as if someone is still using the room, still relaxing in their favorite spot. It's a domestic, familiar kind of haunting. It speaks to the idea of the house as a home, not just a museum. If this is Elvis, he's not throwing things in anger. He's simply sitting in his chair, maybe getting ready to listen to a song playback. It's a subtle reminder of his presence, a sign that he is still enjoying his favorite room. Are the strange movements in the jungle room just the result of a quirky house and forgetful employees? Is it a form of residual energy, the room replaying the simple everyday actions of its former owner? Or is Elvis himself still pulling up a chair, kicking back, and enjoying the sound of the waterfall? If you could move an object after you died, would you do something dramatic, or would you do something simple to show you were still there? What does the choice of object and the type of movement say about the personality of the ghost? And why does a room with a carpeted ceiling feel like the perfect place for a haunting? Number 7. Does a shadow watch from the garden? The meditation garden is the final resting place for Elvis and his family. It is a place of reverence and quiet. But for some security guards who patrol the grounds at night, it can also be a place of unease. They speak of a tall, shadowy figure. This is not the same figure sometimes seen by Elvis's grave. This one is different. It is seen not in the garden itself, but near the edge of the property, standing by the fence that separates Graceland from the outside world. It just stands there, watching. The description is almost always the same, a tall, human-shaped shadow, darker than the surrounding night. It has no discernible features, no face, no clothes. It's just a void in the shape of a man. When a flashlight beam hits it, it doesn't reflect the light. It either vanishes instantly or seems to just recede into the deeper shadows of the trees. It never moves towards the person who sees it. It never makes a sound. It just watches. This phenomenon is known worldwide as a shadow person. Reports of these entities have existed for centuries, but have become much more common in the internet age. They are distinct from typical ghosts, which are usually described as transparent, misty, or having the clear appearance of a deceased person. Shadow people are opaque, dark, and featureless. They are often seen out of the corner of the eye, but some encounters are direct and terrifying. The skeptics offer several plausible explanations. The most common is again pareidolia. At night, in a poorly lit area, the brain is desperate to make sense of ambiguous shapes. A bush, a tree trunk, a cluster of shadows can easily be interpreted as a human figure. The mind creates the entity. Another explanation is neurological. Hypnagogia, the state between wakefulness and sleep, can produce vivid hallucinations, including dark figures in the room. This could explain sightings by tired security guards on a long shift. Some scientific theories even point to infrasound, low-frequency sound below the range of human hearing, which can cause feelings of unease, dread, and even visual distortions that could be interpreted as a shadowy figure. But what if it's something more? In the world of paranormal theory, there are many ideas about what shadow people are. Some believe they are a type of ghost, perhaps one that doesn't have enough energy to manifest in a more detailed form. Others believe they are interdimensional beings momentarily visible as they pass through our reality. A more unsettling theory is that they are malevolent, non-human entities that feed on fear. At Graceland, however, the figure isn't described as malevolent, it's described as watchful, a guardian. This has led to a fascinating local theory among some of the staff. They don't think it's Elvis. They think it might be the spirit of a devoted fan. Since Elvis's death, there has been a constant vigil outside the gates of Graceland. Fans from all over the world come to pay their respects, to stand and look at the house. Some are so devoted they have spent significant parts of their lives there. The theory is that this shadow figure could be the spirit of one of these fans, continuing their vigil even after death. Their love and devotion to Elvis was so strong that it has anchored them to the place, forever standing guard outside the walls. This idea flips the traditional haunting narrative on its head. The ghost isn't the resident of the house, but a visitor who never left. It's a testament to the incredible impact Elvis had on his fans, a bond that might literally be stronger than death. Is the shadowy watcher of Graceland a trick of the light and a tired mind? Is it a non-human entity drawn to a place of great emotional energy? Or is it the ultimate fan, a loyal soul still standing watch over the home of his idol, a silent, dark guardian at the gates of the king? If a spirit can be tied to a place by love rather than tragedy, what does that mean for the nature of hauntings? Can a place be haunted by the living, by the sheer force of their focused emotion and attention? And if you saw a shadow person, would your first instinct be to run or to ask it what it's waiting for? Number 6, does Gladys's sadness still linger? Before the meditation garden became the family cemetery, Elvis's mother, Gladys Love Presley, was buried at Forest Hill Cemetery in Memphis. But her presence has always been felt most strongly at Graceland itself. She only lived in the mansion for a little over a year before her death in August 1958. She was reportedly never entirely comfortable with the scale of Graceland and the fame that had enveloped her son. She missed their simpler life. She worried constantly about Elvis. Her portrait hangs in the house, a reminder of the woman who was the center of his world. The paranormal phenomena associated with Gladys are very different from those associated with Elvis or even Vernon. They are not about performance or duty. They are about emotion, specifically a profound and overwhelming sadness. Staff members, particularly those who work in the main living and dining areas, have reported being suddenly hit by a wave of melancholy. It comes out of nowhere. One moment they're going about their work, the next they're overcome with a sense of loss and grief that is so strong it can bring them to tears. And then, just as quickly as it came, it's gone. There are no apparitions of Gladys, no disembodied voice. There is only this powerful transient feeling. This is what paranormal researchers call an emotional residue. It's the idea that a place can hold on to the energy of very strong emotions. Gladys's final year was filled with worry and declining health. The joy of her son's success was mixed with the deep anxiety of a mother watching her child navigate a dangerous new world. That potent mix of love and fear, pride and sadness could have left an indelible psychic mark on the home. Psychologists would call this an emotional atmosphere. A room can be imbued with certain feelings based on its decor, lighting, and history. A staff member knowing the tragic story of Gladys Presley, seeing her portrait, and being in the quiet, museum-like stillness of the house might subconsciously tap into their own feelings of sadness and attribute it to an external, supernatural source. It's a projection of their own empathy. But the reports are often more physical than that. Along with the sadness, some people report feeling a gentle, comforting touch on their arm or shoulder, especially female employees. It's described as a maternal, reassuring touch. It's as if Gladys is not only projecting her sadness, but also her deep, abiding love and her instinct to comfort others. One particularly poignant story came from a former maid. She was having a difficult day, upset about a problem at home. She was quietly dusting in the dining room, trying not to cry. She said she suddenly felt a hand on her shoulder and was filled with a sense of peace, as if a mother was telling her everything would be all right. She turned, and no one was there. The feeling of sadness was replaced by a feeling of being cared for. This suggests something more than a simple residual echo. This suggests an intelligent, empathetic presence. A spirit that is not only replaying its own emotions, but is also aware of and responsive to the emotions of the living. This is the spirit of a mother. It aligns perfectly with who Gladys Presley was, a deeply loving and protective woman who worried more about others than she did about herself. Is the wave of sadness at Graceland just the power of a tragic story influencing the emotions of empathetic people? Is it a non-conscious emotional echo forever imprinted on the atmosphere of the house? Or is the spirit of Gladys Presley still walking the halls, still worrying, still loving, and still offering a comforting hand to those in need? Can a feeling be a ghost? If you feel a sudden, inexplicable emotion, is it yours, or are you sensing the psychic residue of someone else's life? And which is a more powerful legacy to leave behind, a string of hit records, or a love so strong it can still be felt 60 years later? Number 5. Are the basement games still being played? The basement at Graceland was a world unto itself. It was a place of pure recreation, a man cave for the king and his entourage. It contained 2 main rooms, the TV room and the billiard room. The TV room was famous for its 3 television sets, a habit Elvis picked up so he could watch all 3 major network news broadcasts at once. The billiard room was a classic wood-paneled space dominated by a large pool table. This is where Elvis and the Memphis Mafia would spend countless hours laughing, telling stories, and engaging in competitive, often rowdy, games of pool. The basement was the sound of friendship and fun, and sometimes it still is. Late at night, when the mansion is silent, staff have reported hearing sounds drifting up from the locked basement. The most common sound is the distinct, sharp crack of a pool cue hitting a ball, followed by the soft rumble of the balls scattering across the felt. Sometimes it's just a single sound, other times it's a sequence of sounds that suggests an entire game is in progress. Security guards have stood at the top of the basement stairs, listening to the phantom game play out below. When they unlock the door and go down to investigate, they find the room empty. The pool balls are sitting motionless in the triangle rack on the table. The cues are all in the wall holder. Skeptics point to the acoustics of an old house. The basement, being below ground, can be a place where sounds from the plumbing and heating systems get amplified and distorted. A water pipe contracting in the wall could make a sharp clack. That sounds like a pool ball. The rumble of the furnace kicking on could mimic the sound of balls rolling. It's auditory pareidolia again, the brain trying to make sense of random noises in a context-specific way. You're near the pool room, so the noise you hear becomes a pool game. But the stone tape theory offers another compelling explanation. Think of the sheer number of hours and the amount of boisterous, happy energy that was expended in that room. Thousands of games of pool, thousands of jokes, thousands of moments of camaraderie. That energy, those sounds, could be recorded in the room itself. The staff aren't hearing a ghost playing pool in the present. They are hearing an echo of a game that was played in 1965. This would explain why the sounds never seem to interact with the guards. You can't interrupt a recording that's already been made. There are also reports of voices and laughter, muffled and indistinct, coming from the TV room. The sounds are of a group of men enjoying themselves. It's the sound of a party that ended long ago. This fits the residual haunting model perfectly. It's not a single spirit, but the energetic residue of a whole group of people, a moment in time replaying itself. However, a few reports hint at something more. One custodian claimed that as he was cleaning the billiard room, a single ball, the 8 ball, slowly rolled a few inches from the center of the table towards a corner pocket, as if gently pushed. The table is perfectly level. This moves beyond a simple auditory replay and into the realm of physical manifestation. This single, deliberate movement suggests an intelligence. It's less like a recording and more like someone is trying to get your attention, to invite you to play. It's a playful, interactive gesture completely in line with the spirit of the room. The Graceland basement was a sealed-off world, a place to escape the pressures of the outside. It was a place of games and laughter. It seems that spirit of fun was so powerful that it has refused to fade away. Are the sounds from the basement merely the groans of an old house's infrastructure interpreted by imaginative minds? Are they a psychic recording of good times, an echo of laughter that never really died? Or are Elvis and his friends still down there racking them up for another game in the middle of the night? If a place can record sounds, is there a limit to how many times it can play them back? Does the recording ever degrade or fade? And if you heard a phantom party in a basement, would you be more tempted to join in or to run away? Number 4, is there a presence in the trophy room? The walkway that connects the main house to the backyard at Graceland was enclosed by Elvis to create what is now the trophy room. It's a long hallway-like space lined with display cases. Inside are priceless artifacts from his career gold and platinum records, awards, movie posters, keys to cities, and personal mementos. It is a physical timeline of his unprecedented success. It is a room that hums with the energy of adoration from millions of fans. And according to staff, it is also a room where you are never truly alone. The primary phenomenon reported in the trophy room is the feeling of being followed. Staff members walking through the room will get the distinct sensation that someone is walking just a few paces behind them. They can't hear footsteps on the carpeted floor, but they can feel the presence. It's a palpable sense of another person being there. When they turn around, the hallway is empty. The feeling is so persistent that some employees will walk through the room backwards just to avoid the unnerving sensation. This connects to the sensed presence effect, but it's more specific than a general feeling of being watched. It's the feeling of a moving presence, an unseen escort. Skeptics might argue this is a product of the room's design. It's a long, relatively narrow space. The walls of glass display cases create reflections and strange plays of light. A person's own shadow or reflection caught in their peripheral vision could easily be misinterpreted as another person. The sheer value and historical weight of the items in the room could also create a psychological pressure that manifests as a feeling of being watched or guarded. But the reports get more specific. Some staff have reported hearing faint, disembodied footsteps on the carpet, as if from a heavy man pacing back and forth. Others have heard a low sigh, the sound of someone weary but proud, looking over their life's work. The most common auditory phenomenon is a whispered phrase, thank you very much. It's Elvis's signature sign-off, heard when no one is there. These sounds suggest a residual haunting, and Elvis spent a lot of time in this room showing it to friends and visitors. The act of him walking down the hall, admiring his own achievements, could be an event that replays. The whisper of thank you could be an echo from a moment when he was feeling particularly grateful for his career and his fans. However, the feeling of being followed seems more interactive and present tense. It's happening now, in response to the living person in the room. This could be an intelligent haunting. Perhaps it's Elvis himself, walking along with the staff, a ghostly tour guide in his own museum. He was known to be incredibly proud of his accomplishments, and it's easy to imagine his spirit still drawn to the room that so perfectly encapsulates his legacy. The trophy room is a monument to a life. It's a space defined by memory and admiration. It is, in a way, a temple to the king. Such places filled with focused human intention and emotion are often said to be powerful generators of psychic energy. The millions of fans who have walked through that room, pouring their love and adoration onto the artifacts, may have contributed to the room's energetic charge. The presence felt, there might not just be Elvis, but a composite energy of all the love his fans have given him over the years. Is the feeling of being followed in the trophy room just a trick of the light and the mind in a long, reflective hallway? Is it a psychic echo of Elvis pacing, forever reviewing his own legend? Or is the king's spirit still there, walking with the night watchman, quietly saying thank you for keeping his memory alive? If the collective energy of fans can create or strengthen a haunting, does that mean that the most famous people are more likely to become ghosts? What happens when the last person remembers you is gone? Does your ghost fade away? Number 3, why is the upstairs still off limits? The second floor of Graceland is a place of legend. It contains Elvis's bedroom, his dressing room, his office, Lisa Marie's childhood bedroom, and the bathroom where he was found unconscious on August 16, 1977. Since the day Graceland opened to the public, this area has been sealed. The official reason given by the Presley family is one of respect and privacy. It was his private sanctuary in life, and they wish it to remain so in death. The only people allowed up are a select few family members and the Graceland curatorial staff for preservation purposes. But there are whispers of another reason. The whispers say the area is too active, too intense to be open to the public. While direct reports from the second floor are scarce due to the lack of access, the few stories that have leaked out from maintenance or curatorial staff are powerful. They speak of an incredibly heavy atmosphere, a sense of deep sadness and turmoil that is palpable as soon as you reach the top of the stairs. This is the area where Elvis spent his final troubled years battling health problems and insomnia. It was his refuge, but also his cage. One of the most persistent legends involves a specific object, a record player, in his bedroom. The story goes that a record is still on the turntable, the last one he ever played. Staff who have been up there have allegedly reported hearing that record playing on its own, the faint, tinny sound of the music drifting from the closed bedroom door. The song is said to be a gospel tune by his favorite group, the Stamps Quartet. When the door is open, the turntable is still and silent. Another story involves a television set left on a channel that no longer exists, just broadcasting static. The sound of this static is sometimes heard at night, but more unsettlingly, some have claimed to see a figure's shadow pass in front of the screen's faint glow, seen from the hallway through the crack under the door. Skeptics rightly point out that these are essentially rumors, third-hand accounts that can't be verified. They are modern folklore, fueled by the mystery of the forbidden space. The very act of making a place off limits invites speculation and invention. It's human nature to create stories to fill a vacuum of knowledge. The heavy atmosphere can be explained by the psychological weight of knowing you are in the room where a global icon died. It's not a ghost you feel, it's the power of history, but if we entertain the paranormal possibilities, the second floor would be the epicenter of any haunting at Graceland. This is where the most intense emotions of Elvis's life were concentrated: his joy, his pain, his creativity, his isolation, and ultimately his death. Traumatic or sudden deaths are often believed to create a powerful spiritual imprint, anchoring a spirit to the location. Elvis's death at only 42 was a global shock. The energy of that event would have been immense. The phenomena reported, the music, the shadows, are classic signs of a residual haunting, the space replaying moments from its history. Elvis, unable to sleep, playing gospel records late into the night, it was a common routine for him. But the oppressive feeling, the sense of turmoil, speaks to something more. It feels more personal, more present. It's what has led to the theory that the family keeps it closed not just for privacy, but because the spirit of Elvis is too present, too raw, and perhaps too sad to be witnessed by the general public. It would be a violation not just of his memory, but of his ongoing spiritual presence. Is the mystery of the second floor simply a clever marketing tool, the allure of the forbidden that keeps people fascinated with Graceland? Is it a family's genuine desire to protect the last private space of a very public man? Or is the upstairs of Graceland sealed because it is a space of profound and ongoing paranormal activity, a wound in time that has never fully healed? If a place is sealed off from the living, does it make it easier or harder for a spirit to linger there? Does the energy of thousands of curious people at the bottom of the stairs feed the phenomena at the top? And what would you find if you could spend one night alone in Elvis Presley's bedroom? Number 2, what is the scent of a ghost? Of all the 5 senses, smell is the most powerfully linked to memory. A whiff of a certain perfume, of baking bread, of fresh-cut grass, can transport you back decades in an instant. At Graceland, some of the most baffling and intimate unexplained phenomena are not seen or heard, but smelled. The staff call them phantom scents, and they are often unmistakably Elvis. One of the most common reports is the sudden, strong smell of fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches. This was Elvis's most famous and favorite comfort food. A tour guide will be standing in the kitchen, a room that hasn't been used for cooking since 1977, and the air will suddenly be thick with the smell of bacon grease and frying bananas. It lasts for a few minutes, then vanishes as quickly as it appeared. There's no source for the smell. The appliances are disconnected. The room is a static display. Another frequently reported phantom scent is that of Elvis's cologne. He had several favorites over the years, but one of the most well-known was Brute. Staff, often in the upstairs hallway near his private rooms, have reported being enveloped by the strong, distinct smell of Brute cologne. One moment the air is still and scentless, the next it's as if someone has just walked past them, fresh from splashing it on. These olfactory hallucinations are known as phantasmia. As mentioned with Vernon cigars, they can have medical causes. But when they are this specific and this connected to the history of a location, they become part of the paranormal lore. The skeptics suggest that the power of suggestion is extremely strong when it comes to smell. The tour guide is in the kitchen, talking about the famous sandwiches. Her own brain could be triggering a memory of that smell so powerfully that she believes she is actually smelling it. It's a psychosomatic response, but the smells are not always tied to a specific location. The smell of gardenias, his mother's favorite flower, is sometimes reported in the living room, far from any garden. The smell of leather from his stage jumpsuits has been noticed in the basement. This makes the power of suggestion argument a little weaker. In paranormal theory, phantom scents are often considered a calling card of a specific spirit. They are a subtle, non-threatening way for a presence to make itself known. It requires less energy than a full apparition or moving an object. It's a gentle reminder. For those who experience it, it's often deeply personal. Smelling his cologne is like feeling his presence in the room with you. It's an intimate form of haunting. Think about the life lived in that house. The air would have been constantly filled with these signature smells, the food he loved, the cologne he wore, the flowers he bought for his mother. The stone tape theory could suggest that these strong recurring smells could also be recorded into the environment, just like sounds or images. The molecules of the scent aren't still there, but the energetic impression of them is, and it can be triggered under the right conditions. The phantom smells of Graceland create a different kind of ghost story. It's not about fear or mystery. It's about memory and intimacy. It's about how a person's essence is more than just their image or their voice. It's also the unique sense that surrounded them. Are the phantom scents of Graceland just tricks of the mind? Old memories triggered by the suggestive power of the museum? Are they energetic recordings of the everyday smells of a life once lived? Or is the spirit of Elvis so tied to his home that even the scent of his favorite cologne and his midnight snacks still linger in the air? If you were a ghost, what scent would you leave behind to let people know you were there? Is a phantom smell a memory of the past, or a sign of a presence in the now? And which is more convincing proof of a ghost seeing a misty figure or smelling a fresh fried peanut butter and banana sandwich in a cold, dark kitchen? Number 1, is the king really gone? This is the ultimate question at Graceland, the one that underpins all the other stories. It's the phenomenon that is the hardest to prove but the most widely felt, the apparition of Elvis Presley himself. It is the holy grail of Graceland ghost stories, and while a clear, verifiable photograph or video has never emerged, the personal testimonies from credible witnesses are numerous and consistent. The sightings are rarely dramatic. He is not seen walking through walls or rattling chains. The apparition is almost always described as solid and lifelike, often mistaken for an impersonator who has somehow gotten into the house after hours. The figure is usually seen for just a moment, a fleeting glimpse. He is seen walking down the main hall, standing by the piano in the music room, or looking out the front window. He is often seen wearing one of his famous 1970s jumpsuits, usually the white one. One of the most compelling accounts came from a veteran security guard in the late 1980s. He was doing a late-night check of the grounds. As he looked up at the house, he saw a man standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the light from the foyer. The man was tall, had the familiar dark hair, and was wearing a white suit. The guard's first thought was that a very dedicated impersonator had breached security. He radioed for backup and started towards the house. As he got closer, the figure simply faded away. It didn't walk away, it just dissolved into the night. Another story comes from a tour guide who was the last person in the house one evening. As she was walking through the living room, she saw a man in a white jumpsuit sitting in a chair, his back to her. Well, she called out, thinking it was a coworker playing a joke. The figure stood up, turned slightly so she could see his profile, the famous sideburns, the strong jawline, and then he was just gone. She said the feeling in the room was not fear, but a profound sense of peace. Skeptics have a powerful argument against these sightings' wishful thinking. And Elvis is one of the most recognizable figures in human history. His image is everywhere. In a place like Graceland, a museum dedicated to his life, visitors and staff are completely immersed in his world. The brain is primed to see him. A trick of the light, a reflection in a glass case, a shadow moving in the corner of your eye, the mind can easily and instantly shape that ambiguous visual data into the familiar form of Elvis Presley. It is the ultimate example of pareidolia. The fact that he is often seen in his iconic jumpsuit, and not the pajamas or tracksuit he was more likely to wear around the house in his final years, also points to the idea that people are seeing an image from their collective memory, not an authentic spirit. They are seeing the legend, not the man. But for those who have seen him, the experience is unshakably real. They insist it was not a shadow or a trick of the light. They saw a solid person. Paranormal theory would call this an intelligent haunting. The spirit is not just a recording, it is conscious, aware, and able to choose how it appears. If Elvis's spirit is still at Graceland, perhaps he chooses to appear as the world best remembers him, the dynamic, charismatic king in his prime. It's his way of communicating that he is okay, that he is still that powerful performer. His life was about his connection with his audience. He fed on their energy. It's a beautiful thought that even in death, he is still there, still making appearances for a much smaller, more select audience, the people who care for his home. He is, in a way, still putting on a show. You know, the house is his stage, and like the night staff are his only fans. The stories of Elvis's ghost are the culmination of all the other phenomena. The voice, the music, the smells, the moved objects, they all point to a single lingering consciousness. A man who loved his home so much, who poured so much of his life and soul into it, that a part of him could never leave. Are the sightings of Elvis just the product of overactive imaginations in an emotionally charged environment? Is it the ultimate case of seeing what you want to see, or has the king of rock and roll truly never left the building, content to spend eternity in the one place on earth he felt was truly home? If you could choose how your spirit appeared to the living, would you choose to look as you did in your happiest moments? Is a ghost the person as they were, or the legend they became? And if Elvis Presley were to walk into the room right now, would anyone really be surprised?